was it to make that decision to end his season and put him on ice?
Well, really the decision gets made for us once he trained during the week, and he was running and then he went and did a drill. He wasn't going anywhere near flat out, and just he did all of what he had to do, and then just afterwards just felt a little bit tight. So really the decision gets made for us. He knew at that point in time that his season was done, and most importantly we had to make that decision now to give him the right platform in a strength sense for season 2021.
Do you think that he may need some post-season surgery?
No, it's not about the surgery. It's just about an extensive long-term strength plan, and so that's what he's commenced, and we've started that now. So that'll be a long-term build to get him right for next year.
Peter Danica from Nine. Do you worry? Obviously, last year it was pretty. He had a bad run with injury as well. This year as well. Do you worry that this could be it for Buddy?
Oh, we're confident that he'll get back, and if you saw him train before Christmas, he was absolutely flying, probably as good as I've seen him train whilst he's been in Sydney. And then he had a period through the shutdown period there for about 8 weeks where he was also training really well. So he had a knee after Christmas, and then he had that hamstring. But if we're confident that if we get this strength program right and build him up that way, we know that both he and us have got a lot of work to do in that regard, but if we get that work done, that'll provide him with a strong platform.
John, is he going to remain with the team the rest of the season, travelling?
Yeah. So he's with us now, and he's got a role to play with us. He sat on the bench on the weekend. He mightn't do that every week, but he sat on the bench on the weekend, and he's obviously been participating all through what's been happening here, and just as importantly, if not more importantly than that, he's been working on his program to get himself right in a longer term sense.
What sort of impact does he have on the younger guys, just having him around the group, even though he's obviously not out in the field, but
yeah. Well, it's important for him around here. It's all of our players, not just the younger ones, but the younger ones certainly benefit from having him around, both in a football sense, but just the fact that he's Lance Franklin with that experience and knowledge behind him, and so everyone benefits from having him around, and hopefully he benefits from that long-term strength work that he gets.
How do you see his role going forward, John? Can he still be like the main man up forward, or do you think he'll need to adjust in his next 2 years if he keeps going that long?
I mean, the reality is once he comes into the team, he has a big presence. You can't deny that. So we've got to make sure that we get him strong to be able to train well enough to get him back to playing some good, strong AFL footy. And where that happens, that'll take care of itself usually by then. The development of other players will hopefully keep happening, and he gets himself in that position where he can do enough training to make sure that his body's resilient enough to get through. He won't be training like a 22-year-old, but we need to get him strong enough to be able to get resilient enough to then be able to go through the season without getting injured, and that's our plan. And what happens from that in a game sense, well, that usually takes care of itself, but I'm not getting too caught up in that at the moment. The main step, first of all, is to get him strong through his core.
John, how did you go about reviewing Saturday night's game? Obviously, a pretty disappointing result.
Yeah, it was. A big difference in 7 days, and we've seen differences, big swings with all teams this year in 7 days. And sometimes you can play a couple of games in that 7 days, and so you do get a big swing in it. We were disappointed with, obviously, the difference between the week before and the game against Fremantle. So Fremantle, to their credit, were really good, and we've got to make sure. I think there was about a 10-minute period just before half time where they really put the foot down and we didn't go with them. But there's some work that we need to do, particularly with our connection work forward of centre, that we need to get better at.
Any more questions?
John, it's been a really tough day for employees of the AFL, with about 20% potentially losing their jobs. Just can you describe how tough it is for Clubland and COVID-19 and everything going through today?
Yeah, it's quite, these are extraordinary times, and sometimes we get caught up on just talking about the football side of it and what happens on the ground without realising the impact to so many people that's happening off the ground. And we're not in a normal environment, clearly, and staff from all over the AFL, from clubs and the AFL itself, obviously feeling the pinch and have been feeling the pinch for quite a while. And some long-term AFL employees that you get to know really well are feeling the pinches at the moment. So whether it's the media industry that's been feeling the pinch probably for a while, or in particular now with the AFL, there's not one bit of the industry that hasn't been touched by this, and it's quite significant. So the game going forward next year will look a lot different than what we know it's been up until this year.
John, Ben Horn here. There's a decision apparently on the grand final this week as well from the AFL. Given the amount of time you've spent in Sydney and seeing the game in Sydney, do you think it would be a huge? What do you think it would do for the game in Sydney if that was at ANZ Stadium?
Personally, Benny, I'm always in favour of rotating the grand final, and I've always been consistent along those lines. But as far as what it would do for footy in New South Wales, it would be incredible. I don't know whether we've got any chance or not. I see our numbers are heading the right direction, which is terrific. But anything that can help the game grow in the northern states, obviously Brisbane are right in the hunt as well. But whether it's Queensland or New South Wales, it is a unique, probably once in a lifetime opportunity to be able to showcase the major event and all that comes around that. So I dare say that Gil and everyone from the AFL will be putting their heads down into making sure that happens to some degree, a decision on that. So, but I can't see any downside to it in regards to the growth of the game.
Thank you.
Have you got any areas over the off-season, John, that you'll be keen to try and shore up the listing? I know you're not going to go into any specific names or anything, but are there any parts of the team that you really feel like you need to trade aggressively for or recruit for?
Look, there's a few things that come into play there. Obviously, there always is in your list, no matter where you are on the ladder, that you'd like to be able to improve. And we've clearly got some areas we'd like to be able to improve. We're the second youngest team in the competition at the moment. We have been, I think, almost every game this year, the younger than our opponents. So we feel like we've got some youth coming through, but there's certainly areas that we need to look at. You do have to take into everything into consideration, then including your salary cap. And it's not as simple as saying, oh, that's an area we want to fix and getting that done. There's a whole lot of things that go into that need to be considered. So those discussions have been happening, but obviously at the moment the priority is finishing the season, and as we know, going into a really short and condensed version of the season, so that'll take up a fair bit of time. But the list management group works on the side and are constantly looking at areas we need to improve.